Hello mates, welcome to Budgie Keat Gaming. I'm your host Finley. Today I'm reviewing yet another indie game that shadow dropped during Nintendo's most recent World Indie Showcase, which has been about a week. I gotta say, this was one hell of a showcase. Tons of awesome looking indie games on the horizon, and 3 solid shadow drops. Last week I reviewed Is This Seat Taken?, which was one of those indie games that shadow dropped during this event. If you'd like to check out that review, I'll have it linked at the bottom, and it'll most likely be the video to show up at the outro. Also, if you'd like me covering lesser-known indie games, please hit the like and subscribe button. It's a huge help for small channels like mine, and also lets me know that you'll like to see me cover more indie games like I have recently been doing. Alright now, onto the review. You are, as the title suggests, a tiny bookstore owner, taking your mobile store that fits inside an adorable little trailer to various locations around town. Throughout your adventure, you'll be buying books for your shop, selling the books to your customers, buying items to decorate your mobile bookstore, helping out the locals, and attending local events. The game starts in the summer season, but you go through all 4 seasons. Each season has 30 days, and the last day of each season is a town gathering celebrating that season. Each day is about 5 to 10 minutes to complete, depending on what is happening during the day. Some of the days are pretty automated where customers come in, buy their stuff and leave. Other days are far more busy where you'll be helping your customers select books, doing quests around town to help its citizens, or buying items at the weekly local markets. There are multiple locations to take your bookstore, such as the beach, downtown, a big box store, a lighthouse, and quite a few other locations. My initial thought was that this was just to change the scenery and nothing else, but I was wrong. The different locations don't change the fundamental gameplay mechanics, but it does change how you may approach the day. Each location has a heightened interest in particular book genres. The lighthouse prefers thriller and mystery-style books. The beach prefers children's and fantasy books. The university prefers classics and drama, and so on. So before you set up shop for the day at any particular location, you have to make sure you have plenty of books on hand for that location's particular interest. To do this, you have to buy books through the advertisements in the local newspaper. Once you receive your books, you stock them on your shelves before the start of the day. Keep in mind, you can't restock in the middle of the day, so what you have on hand at the beginning is what you're stuck with. Something else that played a bigger part than I expected were the decorations. I assumed they would be used for, well, decorating. But nope, they also have benefits and negatives. The items have stats, which give this game a light RPG feeling. Items can either slightly increase or decrease your chances of selling a particular book genre, which can play into how well you do for that particular day. Do you want to have items that increase the chances of selling thriller books at the lighthouse, where that is their preferred genre? If so, you might be able to get away with having nothing but thrillers on hand. Or would you like to have items that increase other genres, such as fantasy or classic at the lighthouse, since you already know you're going to sell a decent amount of thrillers since it's their preferred genre? There are a decent amount of ways you can tackle this, which makes it fun to mess around with and seeing what is the best way to make the most money. It's safe to say that whichever strategy you choose will greatly depend on which books you have on hand. You obviously wouldn't want to push for a book genre that you don't have many on hand. It's also a good idea to keep an eye on which books you have the most of, as this can help when deciding which part of town you want to set up for the day. If you have a ton of thrillers on hand, but don't have much else, then you definitely want to spend your day at the lighthouse. As you can tell, the lighthouse was my favorite location since I keep using it as an example. Do keep in mind that the first few days aren't very exciting. Everything is very automated as you're just learning the gaming mechanics. But around day 3 or 4, things start to pick up. And by day 6, the first day you can go to the weekly flea market, is when things really start to pick up. So if you're feeling a little bored early on, stick it out. It gets so much better. Trust me. One of my favorite features of the game is when you need to help a customer find the perfect book for them. When a customer is wanting help picking a book, it sometimes helps knowing more about the book than what the game tells you. Example: someone was looking for a book that had animals in it. I didn't have any books on hand about animals specifically, but I did have Alice in Wonderland on hand. The book blurb doesn't mention anything about animals, but since I'm familiar with the story and knew animals played a big part of the story, I thought it would be a good pick for the customer, and it turned out it was. Now, knowing about the books is absolutely not something you need to know about before playing the game, but it feels really cool to pick a book for a customer that was based off of your personal knowledge of the book and not based off what the game tells you. This also shows the game isn't doing much hand-holding, which I enjoyed. Another cool moment when someone was looking for a book was when I recommended them Othello, because it seemed like a good fit, and luckily it was, but their response was pretty cool. They said, "I heard they're putting in a new production soon." So, since this game relies heavily on real-life books, I thought I'd see if this comment was based in reality as well. And yup, turns out it's true. A Broadway revival opened in March of this year. I thought that was a nice little touch. There was the same response for The Tempest, which also has a production happening at varied dates this year, along with a few other books. While I thought it was cool that these books had the response since they're all in production in real life, there were other comments that were repeated multiple times, and they were not nearly as interesting. For the most part, the repeated lines aren't awful since there are a ton of lines from the vast amount of shoppers you'll interact with. But every now and then, you'll get some characters who will use the same line on the same shopping day, and in some cases, 2 customers in a row using the same lines, which can be a little annoying. But again, it doesn't happen often, so it's not a huge deal. Another complaint is how there isn't any way to see what books you're stocking before the day starts. There were a few days where I had 2 copies of the same book, which was pretty annoying. Since I only had 4 books of that particular genre on hand, this is especially annoying in the early portion of the game where you have less shelf space for books. This isn't a big deal, and it doesn't affect the game in any major way. There also aren't any negative side effects when you don't have the book someone wants, so overall, it really is a minor issue. But I still think it'd be nice to have the option to see exactly what you're putting on your shelves each day. I also found it extremely odd that this game doesn't support touchscreen. So many things would have been so much quicker if this feature was supported. A real quick mention about performance, this game runs flawlessly on the Switch 2 in handheld mode. The loading is so fast that I don't even get a chance to read the text in between loading screens. On the original Switch, the loading is a bit longer, long enough for me to read the text between screens, but it still isn't awful. Overall, I had a great time with this game and will definitely spend more time with it, even though I've completed my review. It's a fun game to pick up and play, and since each day only lasts 5 to 10 minutes, it's a game where you can easily pick up, play for 30 minutes, and put back down. If you're into shop management games, cozy games, or just want to check out a cool indie game that is trying something different, then I definitely think this is a good pickup. It does have a few issues and can be very slow-paced at times, but I still enjoyed the game and don't regret spending the $20 I spent for this experience. All right now, if you enjoyed that review and want to see more like it, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, let me know down in the comments what your feelings are about this game. And if you played it, let me know how your experience is going. Until next time, take care, mates.